Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester bringing you all of the action from this week in the British Basketball League. And we'll go back to Wednesday night, where the London Lions were playing the Cheshire Phoenix, and it finished 87-61 in favor of the Lions. And the Lions didn't actually attempt a 2-point field goal for the first 5 minutes of the game. 5 minutes. When that first 2-point shot went in, they were 17-4 up. So they were doing pretty well without the 2-point shot.
Yeah, they made 5 in a row. That's right. It was the game after that was actually something of a non-event. Cheshire, focusing on Cheshire. Cheshire looked a little bit of a mess. They got very little from Jalen Hayes early, and virtually nothing from Matthew Bryan-Amoning. And in fact, they started throwing some very silly turnovers and behind the back passes, and that set up at London's fast break. And London had that, that little bit of swagger, but it was noticeable to me that at the beginning of the second half, Coach Thomas didn't want any more of Hayes. He didn't want any more of Bryan and Manning. They didn't start the game. And he went with the guys who were actually playing more efficiently and playing harder. And Jimbo Lowe played very well in the third quarter. But Cheshire just look a bit discombobulated. They've got Lufa-Deju back. They've got Rose Tyson back, which is actually more a problem as much as it is of a help, because you've got to integrate those guys. And as I say, they've got this two big lineup, and then they're starting off with Gordon and
Carey.
Gordon and Cal Carey at times, and then they bring the two bigs together, and it doesn't really work. And Ross is beginning to look a little bit frustrated, and he's just getting back from health. So they're probably going through it. They're probably going through it at the wrong time of the season. London, I was encouraged by the way they started the game off, because I think that's the way they have to play. They have to shoot the ball from the perimeter. They have to space the court, and they have to bomb away. That's the team they are. I think obviously they're managing minutes and managing bodies in the run up to the playoffs. They've got a lot of games going ahead. Spencer's been playing quite a lot, and I think he started this game as well. Robinson's not really back in the flow yet, but Liggins and Williams are the guys who are basically carrying them. They've got a bit of a thing with Parker and Ward Hibbett, depending on whether Parker.
Ward Hibbett had, in the bit where they really took it away in the second half, Ward Hibbett scored 11 in a row.
And he's making some shots he couldn't make previously. He's shooting step back threes. He's going to his left hard. He's finishing better around the rim. At some point, there's a few kind of British younger guys on the cusp of, being meaningful starters in the league. He's one of them. And at some point, for his career in due course, he's going to have to determine what he wants to be. Does he want to be a 12-minute a game guy on a really good team off the bench? Or is he going to try and take his game a little bit further forward?
Well, of course, he was a meaningful starter at Leicester until he got that injury last season.
He was, but he played. He was still. I think he was still. I would say he was still cutting his teeth. I would say he hadn't fully established himself. I think last year would have been his breakout year until he got hurt, and then we never quite found out. So that's his decision. But yeah, he's demonstrating something, and they're playing him at the 4 a lot, which takes away from the spacing a little bit, because he kind of creep inside the 3-point line a little bit compared to Parker. But the energy and the hustle and stuff that he's given them, is really positive. So that's a positive way forward for them. And apart from that, Vince is just throwing guys in there in around. Dre Lockhart came out, Kevin Ware's Penthouse, and he was on the court, and just a very, very comfortable win.
Yeah. Let's move on to another comfortable win. Plymouth Raiders 106, Surrey Scorchers 82. Raiders had 10 of the first 12 points. Teo hits 3 threes to tie the game, and then in the second quarter, Sentence and Neighbour pushed it out to 10 points early in the second quarter. It was never single figures after that. It was another one that was just a bit flat, really.
Yeah, so much so that I'd forgotten it had even happened. Remembering it now, I was disappointed with Surrey's effort. I think effort's probably a wrong word, because if they've played on the weekend and they're driving down to Plymouth to play a team they've played multiple times before, but I didn't think so. I wouldn't say effort, but application. Disappointed with their application.
It felt like there was a lack of desperation for a team that ought to be desperate in the situation they were in.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, they made some. Yeah, you're right. Theo made some shots and kept them going, but there didn't seem to be any grit, if I can put it that way. And that sometimes means, a hard foul. That means a tough rebound or something like that. Something which changes the flow of a game as it's being played. And you never got any impression that was the case. Hildreth a little bit. Hildreth didn't have a particularly good game, which probably hindered him. But he's probably the grittiest of those guys. They've missed the extra body with Cheshire, and they're not that big without they're playing Lacey James and Rickman, but they rarely play them together. Yeah. So it was disappointing, and I kind of lost interest midway through the third quarter because Plymouth are what Plymouth are, and we might get to it when we talk about tonight's game as well. But they have it rolling, and the reason they have it rolling is because they have their lineups rolling. He knows exactly who playing where. And
he's got Sentence coming back in now, and he had 14 points in this game.
Yeah, and Sentence is really an interesting player because he's as much as he's a luxury player. That sounds like a weird thing. He's a guy who can score the ball. He can score. PJ, I think, has had issues with him on the other end of the floor. I don't know if there's issues with his temperament, but certainly in his defense, and also with how deep they are. They don't have that many minutes to spread around. But he's a guy that, if he's your 9th or 10th guy on his scouting report, then you're pretty concerned because you know that your guys don't read as far down as the 9th or 10th player. And if they don't, then he's going to come up and he's going to have 12 points in 10 minutes. And those points can win you the basketball game. But what I like about what these PJ's got going now is that he has eBay seems to have, as I say, he seems to have gone off and probably hired Kevin Ware's penthouse now. Kevin because he's disappeared without trace and no one said anything. We don't know if he's injured or if he's gone or whatever. So that leaves just the 3 big guys, Hamilton and Ocherobia and Neighbour, and Beastie kind of spelling Neighbour at the 4. But what that gives them is, Hamilton at the 5, Neighbour at the 4, and then any 3 of their top 4 guards who are Ducher, Morsell, McGill and Porter Bunton is a heck of a tough cover. And those guys love it. Because you can see the spacing they've got. They can all shoot the 3. They can all step out. And if you try and get clever with them by going small, Ashley's going to go down in the post and he's going to punish whoever's guarding him. Yeah. And then you've got all the space for McGill and Ducher is able to kind of drive and pass and kick and get everybody else going. Everybody's happy. The flaw for them with that will be defensively if a team is able to go at them and basically go at Hamilton in the 5 spot or go at Neighbour at the 4 because they're both... Neighbour's not undersized, but he doesn't generally play down low defensively. And Hamilton is undersized for a 5. That has advantages, but also has disadvantages. So that was what happened in the last game against Leicester in overtime, when Leicester were able to score inside on them when they got tired. If is not there. But they all know their rotations, and the switch that McGill flicks when Ducher comes in the game and McGill becomes a scorer is like, you can see he's so comfortable with it, and they're extremely dangerous.
Let's go to Friday then, and one person who wasn't in Kevin Ware's penthouse on Friday evening was Kevin Ware, because he was back out on the court. London Lions 92, Surrey Scorchers 84. He only played 8 minutes, to be fair, Kevin Ware.
Well, rumor was, he's been back to America with the birth of a child, so congratulations. That was something that was mentioned. Other than that, somebody mentioned back spasms to me. I don't know. That's probably not something to have congratulations for.
No.
Way, it would be nice.
But if it was the birth of the child, they could have put that out, and everybody.
Well, just even personal reasons. Well, goodness knows, to be honest, it's no fun if we can't speculate. So let's not complain about it. Yeah, but he was back, and he looked, to be honest, like somebody who hadn't played for 3 or 4 weeks when he came in the game. In fact, Surrey played this game entirely differently to the way they played at Plymouth, and they were a lot more connected. That you could see, defensively they were aggressive but smart, and I don't know if it's the London thing, with some of the Surrey guys, Evan Walsh and Theo and those guys, being from around there, but they put. I don't know if it was just that Creon just went through them after Wednesday night and said this is the way that we want to finish. But I thought they were really, really good in this game. And to be honest, I don't think they were far off their best effort. They are outmatched. Everybody is outmatched by London. Jordan Spencer disappeared, so he wasn't in the lineup this game, having started, I think, the last 3 or 4 games, which let Justin Robinson get back into the lineup. But London played on the basis, London played on the bit, looked like a team that had won by 26 on the Wednesday night. And it took Liggins and a number of tough shots that he made from memory towards the end of the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Well, let's spin it forward, because to be honest with you, other than when Dean Wanless hits a 3 on the buzzer at the end of the first quarter to make it 7, it was essentially a 4-point game either way, all the way through.
Career game for Dean
Dean
14
Wanless,
points,
yeah.
good job, Dean.
And the other notable, a couple of minutes ago in the third quarter, and Hildreth gets a whack on the head as Justin Robinson ran past him and comes out of the game, doesn't come back.
Right.
But with 6 minutes to play, it's 72-72. And then we get to the point where, Liggins basically takes over. He drives to the basket, gets an and 1, he hits a 3, and his team is up 6. And you think, oh, they're gonna go here. But credit to Surrey, they came back again through McLemore hitting a couple of 3s.
Yeah, McLemore had one of his games. He's been very on and off. You don't know if he's going to be playing 30 minutes or he's going to be playing 10 minutes, because he can go for 20 or he can be over 7. And he was on, and Lacey James was on, and they made shots the whole game, which kind of kept them close. And to the point whereby they actually made some tough shots as well, not just straightforward ones. But unfortunately for them, I think Dirk Williams came in and made a shot near the end from memory. I think it was a close game with 2 minutes to go.
It was 2 minutes to go. It was 85-84, and then Lions scored the last 7 points.
Yeah, and that's just maybe a little bit of depth, a little bit of experience, a little bit of talent in relation to having those guys on the court, Liggins in particular.
Liggins at 33 points. He drew 11 fouls and was 9 for 11 from the free throw line. Dirk 7 of 10 from inside the arc. Didn't really shoot the 3.
Yeah, they haven't really got a matchup for Liggins. Sorry, Theo's probably the closest, and he's a bit undersized. So it's tough.
So let's go to Bristol, where the Flyers lost to the Sharks 91-96 in overtime. Not really much in this game in the first half. Sharks just about in front for most of it, and had the lead at halftime. And watching this game back again, it was one of those where it stayed a couple of shots really for Sheffield, and it always looked like they were going to win. And then suddenly it fell apart in the last 10 seconds, really.
Crazy. I mean, I've kind of I was watching your Sky game, so I fast forward. I watched the Bristol game yesterday, but fast forward to kind of the first half for exactly the same reason you say. It was nothing that was any different to what I've previously seen. But Sheffield, Helmsley had an excellent basketball game. He was aggressive, and when he is aggressive, and I think he was 10 or 12 in the game.
Yeah, he was.
And of course he's helped by the fact that Sheffield, Bristol have small guards. So he's a guy who likes to get his shoulder in and rise up and shoot. But he's not necessarily looking to get past you. He's looking to shoot the ball over you and rise up and shoot. And Bristol didn't do a good enough job from what I could see of getting into him, and gave themselves. If you don't stop Helmsley, that's tough, because he should be the first name on your scouting report, and the first name on your scouting report probably shouldn't go for 13 points over his season average. So he did. But you're right, they were in it all the way through. The game was relatively close, and then we had a remarkable minute from Daniel Edozie with about a minute and a half to go. Where he blocked three consecutive shots. With some great plays at the defensive end, which absolutely outstanding. One where Coke was literally under the basket on his own. Probably should have dunked it, but he went to lay it up, and Dozie came over and swatted it. And then somebody made the mistake of throwing him the ball on the fast break with 30 seconds to go. Down 3. And the look on Ben Mockford's face when Dan chucked it up. Down 3 with 30 seconds to go, and you think that's the game. And then Bristol then don't deserve to get back in the basketball game, because they commit a dumb foul, after about 15 seconds of the shot clock have gone.
Yeah.
When there was still they would have got the ball back.
It was one of those where if you were going to foul early, but where you were
Yeah.
there, what are you doing?
Yeah, they had about, I think there's about an 8-second difference, and so they could have run it out and at least got a shot to tie the game. But instead, they foul with 14 seconds left, and Retino makes 2 foul shots. So it's a 5-point game. That should be it. Then Bristol call a timeout, and then they run a little pet play to get the ball. Lockett in the corner. Lockett attacks, scores very quickly. 3-point game with 10 seconds to go, and again, foul Retino, and then he remarkably misses 2 foul shots, and then even more remarkable
shooter on the season from the free throw.
and then even more remarkably, Sheffield let Lockett basically dribble down the court into what is basically an uncontested 3-point shot.
Yeah.
It's a 4 feet outside the 3-point line, so it's not an easy shot, but just no, no, take the ball. You could commit a foul. You could take the ball out of his hands. And it's interesting because we'll get to it later with one of the games later on as well. Sometimes there is actually a skill in defending your own foul shots, because in a foul shot situation for the opposition, you're not necessarily matched up with your normal guys. So you can have 4 players back in your own half if you want, and just a shooter. So if you've got a foul shot, you're up. You've got 4 players back in your own half, and then you can wait for the opposition to come and try and pick them up then. But that can be difficult because you're all pointing at each other.
Yeah.
Or you can put 2 guys on the foul line, but they might not be matched up with the player. They might not be next to the guys they're meant to be guarding. So sometimes you will see it in one of the later games, you have cross matches as a result of that. And it can be a very difficult thing to get right. And I don't think anybody ever got matched up with Lockett, because the first person to step to him was Kipper Nichols, and he was 30 feet from the basket, and he was scared of fouling him.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy thing to suggest, but defending your own foul shots at the end of basketball games can be a game changer. And we always used to say, stand next to whoever you're guarding.
Yeah.
Don't just stand next to whoever your man is. So we always actually put people on the line, not to rebound, but just so they knew where their man was. So they had a specific responsibility when they were coming down the court. And I don't think that happened. So sorry, take us into overtime.
Yeah, make a free throw would be the other alternative.
Make a free throw would be
and to be fair, Hemsley threw it from level with his own free throw line. It almost went in that. There was 0.9 of a second. They all thought they'd lost. Then they was like inbound the ball, and he heaved it.
Tiba actually pointed. Tiba tried to call a timeout, but he didn't have one. Yeah. And he pointed at the inbounds and threw it to Helmsley. Bristol were all in shock that they made the shot. So they weren't anywhere near it. It was a bit bizarre, yeah.
And you worry about Sheffield in that situation, because it's a game that you should have won. Like you were winning all game. You're 5 points up with 10 seconds to go. You should win the game.
Yeah.
To be fair, and Retino as well. And to be fair to him, he hits a 3 in a 7-0 run that put them 91-84 up, and actually they did well in overtime. They played well.
Yeah, they did. They played well. They scored the ball. They made shots, which is important. Bristol struggled a little bit to again, same story with Bristol, I'm afraid, missing around the rim. And there are, and it's debilitating to get good shots and not to convert. I think Wiltshire didn't play the whole of the crunch time and overtime, so they were going with a Okafor and Mockford and kind of a bigger lineup. And that, in theory, should be a better defensive lineup. But I'm not sure it really helped them much offensively. Lockett basically was the guy who had to go and make plays, and they didn't quite make enough. Yeah, Sheffield finished off well, but again, a lot of this overtime stuff comes down to who makes shots. You make a couple of shots, you get your shooters the ball, you make a couple of shots, and you're good.
So let's go to the Sky game. Newcastle 90, Leicester 80. Basically, Newcastle couldn't score at the beginning of the game. 3 minutes in, it's 15-4, and a real struggle for the Eagles. Very comfortable for the Riders. And I remember in the second quarter, Newcastle called a timeout. 3:49 to go to half time. It's a 14-point game, and what we were saying is this is the game right here. Newcastle have to win these last 4 minutes to have any chance in it, because they just didn't look like they were able to score.
I don't wish to be condescending here, but I was so proud of you when you said that. Because you were spot on. You know, that's sorry, you've watched more basketball than me, but even so, you were spot on about that. I mean, the game was really. I enjoyed watching this game because it was actually a because it mattered to both teams. That's the first thing. It mattered to Newcastle because of their horrendous loss the previous week. It mattered to Leicester because obviously they're going for it and they want to win the league as quickly as possible. Yeah. And obviously it's Newcastle against Leicester, so there is a little edge. Yeah. I was actually quite encouraged for Newcastle's purpose, even by the first quarter, because they were missing shots, but their weaknesses haven't really been about missing and making shots. Their weaknesses have been about their defense. And the first thing was starting Defoe. That was a major. That's the first time he's started all season. Yeah. So that indicates kind of how bad things must have got in the coach's mind. And whilst Leicester made some plays early, nothing came easy. Newcastle had the shots. Fletcher missed some threes. Defoe was 1 of 10 from the floor in the first half. Edwards couldn't make a shot all night. And then in the second quarter, there were a couple of calls that this game wasn't particularly well ref throughout, actually, both ways. There were a couple of calls which impacted Newcastle as well. There was a missed half-court call, which gave up potentially a 5-point swing, gave up 3 in the corner. There was a missed foul on Fletcher when Nelson Henry hit him, and Crandall went down the other end, which was a 4-point swing. So that got to, those swings do matter in a game like that. You're right, you got to that 4-minute mark in the second quarter, but because Newcastle had just dug in enough, they just had enough teeth in the game, if I can put it that way. They weren't giving stuff up easy. They were able to stem the flow. Lasker helped as well. Lasker played a lot of minutes in the first half, took a charge, got some steals, defended Crandall relatively well. And so they kind of held themselves in the basketball game, and that was important because, if it had been 20, as you say, it would have been tough. And also, there's the 6-quarter theory comes in again as well, because if you have a team that's beating your brains out for 6 quarters, which is what Leicester had done in Newcastle, then eventually there's going to be a bite back. Yeah, and there was.
And the bite back came right after half time. I think it was the first 8 possessions of the third quarter. Leicester had 6 turnovers, so there was 4 steals in there, and there was a block shot. So they scored on 1 of the first 8, and they only got a shot to the rim once out of that.
And I think there was 2 reasons for that. One, I think that'll be the last game that Crandall doesn't start. I'd be surprised if he's going to play. He's going to play 32 minutes, then you may as well have him starting, because the dynamics of the team change when he isn't. The people he's playing with change when he isn't, and they've got that's learned behaviour. So so now it's about Fraser learning to play with him more, perhaps because Nelson Henry's not playing with him as much. It's about Connor playing without another guard as opposed to playing with him. So that was the first thing, and we've said, that Leicester's starting lineup is, at the moment, without Crandall, with Connor in it, is efficient, but we've seen some signs of vulnerability in it, particularly if you can defend Nelson Henry. And what happened was, in the first 4 or 5 minutes of the third quarter, Defoe changed the game, because Defoe got the first possession, he got a steal. The second possession, he pushed Nelson Henry out to the 3-point line, and Nelson Henry tried to flip a pass and he picked it off and threw it the other way. The next possession, he may have taken a charge or made a stand. So much so that the Leicester guys at that point were thrown off a little bit, because they couldn't go to Nelson Henry and they couldn't go to their backup, which is Gino, because Gino wasn't in the game. So Rob brought Gino in very quickly. But at that point, the big guys, Nelson Henry in particular, were a little bit, I'll not say spooked by Defoe, but they were suddenly catching the basketball out on the 3-point line. And that's not what they're used to. And Fletcher then used the opportunity to get back and nipped a couple of steals from them, knocking the ball out of their hands from behind, which results in run-outs the other way. It's layups, it's everybody's high-fiving, everybody's happy. The momentum of the game has changed. But fundamentally, it was the defense of Defoe on Nelson Henry, which changed everything, because throughout the game, thank you, Lord, given the amount of times I've said this, Connor got nothing open, and Corey Johnson didn't shoot a 3, which is remarkable. Newcastle basically locked those 2 guys down in relation to the shots they want to shoot. So they needed something else. And at that point, they got a little bit discombobulated, Leicester, just a little bit, I'm not saying emotional, but they got a little bit uncomfortable, and it was the intensity, and it wasn't really matched until Falzon came in and he had his little bat with Defoe. Falzon, to his credit, took some of the challenge up, which some of the other guys weren't taking up. And, you know, you even heard it on the mic afterwards with Gino.
With that,
And you hear Gino saying about what Defoe standing there and all that stuff. You know, Defoe was in their heads to a certain degree. You know, not massively, right? But the reason he was because he'd taken it to them. He'd taken the aggression to them and become the aggressor instead of being the guy the guys who were being pushed around. Now, when he went out the basketball game, in the third quarter, and the thing was, as soon as Maxwell comes in the game, Leicester immediately pick and roll.
Yeah.
So they're immediately going straight at him, and I think he picked up a fourth foul very quickly. He was playing aggressively, but too aggressively, and that actually probably helped Newcastle because it limited the amount of possessions that Leicester could go at him because Defoe's better in roll. And then basically Louis Sayers took over.
Yeah.
And Fletcher did a great job in finding Sayers, and Sayers does what he's probably the biggest heat check guy in the league, because he has multiple. You'll have a stat for it somewhere, but he must have multiple games this season with 4 or 5 threes in a quarter. Yeah. Probably even more so than Johnson. Johnson's a little bit more consistent throughout the whole game.
Yeah.
But Sayers he went off for 4 threes.
Yeah, he had 4 in that quarter.
And you know, in about 5 or 6 minutes. So suddenly the whole game spins on its axis. And it's good. It's fun to watch because you want to see Leicester being challenged. Because at the moment they've proven they're the best. As far as I'm concerned, they've proven they're the best team. But over the course of the 30 games, but we want to kind of get a little tester, for the playoffs as to what's it going to like when the intensity is ramped up and they are challenged.
Yeah.
The refereeing, double technicals, I hate them. I test double technicals. If you don't know.
The interesting thing about the double technical is because that was Defoe's 4th, and how aggressive he was. If he'd fouled out of the game in the 4th quarter, and there were a few that when you see the replay back, you go, "Whoa, he's a bit lucky."
And this is the thing. This is what I was saying when I said to you, I didn't think it was a very
particularly the way it was called in the first.
Exactly.
In the first half.
That's why I say I don't think it was very well refereed, because I think that the calls that they missed in the first half in relation to Newcastle, one of which resulted in a technical warning, which resulted in them getting the bench technical and Connor missed a foul shot, actually. But in the second half, I think Newcastle probably got the benefit of some contact near the rim, which they didn't call. Not every time, but certainly there were probably 2 or 3, which I watched back as well. I thought, on another day that could be called. And then in the last minute and a half, you know, suddenly Crandall starts denying Fletcher, and suddenly that becomes a foul.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't called that for most of the game, you know, and so I know, but just the point, a very specific point, a generic point in relation to all the games. Double technicals. Look, it's not like the NBA. You can't just give them a double technical and nothing happens. It's just to calm them down. A technical foul is a personal foul. You only get 5. Every player should be able to walk up to a referee after a technical foul and say, why have I got that technical foul? Yeah. And you don't get one for standing still and doing nothing. Now, if you're talking at somebody and it's a double technical, the referee needs to know who started the talking and whose fault it is. And then he needs to know exactly what was said in response and why that warranted a technical. You can't just kind of blanketly go, these two were staring at each other, double technical. It doesn't work like that. It's wrong to do that. We had that at Bristol with Defoe getting a technical for saying, "Excuse me, what did you say?" You know, it is not.
The other guy's effing and blinded out.
It's a bailout. So if they can't justify it, they don't call anything because it impacts the game in the way that he said. It was Falzon's 3rd foul, it was Defoe's 4th foul. But a clever coach is going to send on some disruptor from his bench to say, "Go get in Gino's face, go and push him around, knock him around a bit. And if you get a double tech, that's great because he's on 3 fouls, he fouled himself out." That's not right. No, you know, the refs have to be better at establishing who instigates it and whether the instigator is worth a technical and whether the responder is has done enough to justify them on their own merits, not just because two guys in the heat of the game are standing there nose to nose. Neither of them wants to take a backward step. That's not a technical. That's just two guys playing basketball.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and
you saw them go at each other as well. Foul zone hits a three, Defoe hits a fadeaway. It was fun to watch.
It's fun to watch. It doesn't need it, I mean, unless something was said, and we saw on the footage afterwards, nothing was said in reality. If there's effing and blinding at each other, yeah, fine. But just standing there, nonsense. Anyway, sorry, we got to get into the fourth quarter. Yeah.
So Eagles 32 points in the third, having scored 31 in the first half, and then in the fourth quarter, Gordon basically kept Leicester at bay. He had 13 points in that fourth quarter, and Leicester could never quite close the gap. Although there was that spell right near the end, as you've already referred to. And Gino has a couple of pokeaways, and Leicester have a couple of late scores, but Newcastle always had enough of a margin.
They never quite got to one shot. And the interesting thing about this was, as I say, you're always looking for signs of strength and signs of weakness in a team. Okay, and we've probably seen the least weakness in Leicester over any team this year. Of any team, they've got the most. They've got the rotations down pat. They've got the players there, and I think the sign of weakness that came about was just a little bit about their over reliance on Gino, just a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. And there was a time in the middle of the fourth quarter where I think he shot a couple of air balls. Eagles got a couple of runouts the other way, basically because there was nobody in the back court, and you just thought, and Connor kind of disappeared from the basketball game, and then Rob had to take Connor out because Rob likes to finish with Connor. He had to go with Heron instead just to try and give him some more offense because they were getting nowhere. And then Nelson Henry, they ran the Crandall Nelson Henry pick and roll, and then Gordon came from behind and blocked it, which was another psychological thing. So, that's the one bell that Riders haven't run yet. And the thing is that I've been there with at least one of our teams over the past few years. If you have a team that is not overly reliant, but significantly reliant on one individual to make plays, that individual will get a target on their back. Now, that individual may well be good enough to handle it. And there'll be a couple of seasons we've had where we were, and there's a couple of seasons where we weren't. But the target is going to be on their back because teams are going to come at them. And when London play them on Wednesday, Liggins or Williams is going to be guarding him the whole game. And that isn't a physical test for Gino Crandall or any other player. And he is, to be honest, to be fair to him, he's also still hampered by his hand. So I'm not suggesting he's fully healthy either. It's not a physical test, but it is a mental test. And that's, we've seen how well Leicester have played at times when he wasn't there. The last 15 minutes against Worcester when he fouled out. Got the technical, the non-foul, and then the technical with Keith Williams, and he fouled out, and then Connor came in and took over, and suddenly Connor's a different player. So there's going to be a balance there at some point as the test gets harder and harder, as suddenly the teams get more and more focused on how do we stop this team? We have to knock off the head of the snake. The head of the snake is Gino, as to whether or not, as a young player, he's going to be emotionally ready for that. Not physically, not talent-wise, but emotionally ready. And again, there was a little bit at the end when Gordon made the silly dunk at the end, and he didn't all the rest of the court. Which, again, I don't have a problem with the spirit behind that. But I would prefer he just turned around, took it in, and thought, "Well, I'll remember that for next time."
Remember that next time,
So,
but likewise, Gordon shouldn't be dunking in that.
Oh, I'm not on Gordon's side on that. I'll tell you why I'm not on Gordon's side, because 5 years ago we, more than anything else, we lost a player for 6 weeks because Andre Jones tried to make a layup with 5 seconds to go in a game, and which were up by 10 in and did his hamstring. But beyond that, don't give it. It's on the telly, so you get highlights. It should. But it's just it just ratchets things up a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
All these things, your fans might think it's an 8-point game becomes a 10-point game. Doesn't really matter. It does.
It does.
Every little bit of just like
that.
throwing the ball back. In many ways, that's Gino saying, "I'm not taking that." That's him standing up for his team as well. So I don't have a problem with that either. But as the emotions get ratcheted up, the question is who can control them the best, and that's the question that we haven't got answered yet. And that'll be the interesting one. Gordon had a great fourth quarter. I mean, the big play he made was when Fletcher threw him the ball on the inbounds and he dunked it over Herring with a minute to go, because it was I think a one-shot game at that point. And the block on Nelson Henry, because that impacted the way that Leicester played. But overall, it was a really interesting game. And the final thing, and I can't forget this. We forget how good Fletcher is. I've said this regularly. He had 23 points in this game. He had 9 assists. He did not make a shot outside of the paint. In fact, he didn't make a floater. Everything was at the rim. He's 5'10" at best. I think he'd be delighted I called him 5'10". and for a guy to make 10 field goals in the paint, a couple on the fast break, albeit, against a defense that knows that's what he does.
Yeah.
Players like that. His consistency this year has been unreal. Probably his best ever year. It's certainly his best year in numbers form. And to come up again against Leicester, who know what he is and know what he does. And you saw the difference between Fletcher, who was 32, who's a 10-year pro, and Edwards, who's 23, and he's a second-year pro. And to a certain degree, some of the Leicester guys as well. Johnson, he's a second or third-year pro. They didn't get into that basketball game. And we lose track sometimes of just how good these guys who do it every single day, every single week are. Yeah. And every single year. And that game was Fletcher and Defoe, and then Gordon took it over in the fourth quarter.
Right, let's move on as we go out of that game. 24 turnovers for Leicester, 29 points off turnovers.
Yeah, Rob wasn't happy. I quite understand. I understand why Rob wasn't happy as well, because that was a great response for his team, for him to say, look, we can't win a game if we play like that. They got embroiled in a physical battle, and it will prepare them for the playoffs. Yeah. Because it will help them. It was actually 25 turnovers because you missed the half-court violation.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. So Glasgow Rocks 83, Manchester Giants 101. Gareth Murray did not play in this game. And I'm watching this. I'm going, who are these Rocks? They've got no Murray. They've got no Keeling. They've got no Delph. And they are scoring up and down as freely. And there was only 1 3-pointer. It wasn't like they were just jacking threes and they were going in. They had 23 points in 7 minutes at the beginning of the game with 1 3-pointer. It boggles the mind, really, compared to what we've seen for the rest of the season.
Yeah, there are more shots for everybody else. Everybody gets to shoot them a little bit more. I do think, as I said, the fact that this has basically meant Bunyan's had to play a lot has really helped them, because it gives them a shooting threat at the 1. And everybody else has, in that starting 5, everybody else has a role, and they are talented, and they're also playing for jobs. Let's be clear, they're getting the opportunity to play for jobs, but they can shoot. These, probably apart from Brandon, who's a driver, he can finish at the rim, but the rest of them, Malcolm, Van Sowers has got to step out in the drive game, and Jack Donmey has been the worst big man in the league, if I can put it that way, or the best big man in the league, because he has shown that there's a heck of a player inside him. If it can be brought out, but he's a rookie, he's a first year. He wasn't even that experienced in college. So the talent is definitively there. And you're right, in Manchester as well, Manchester are a little bit like that as well, in relation to, they like to play with teams, run along with teams, and provided they're getting their shots. It needs a little bit of I think they're a team who needs reminding about their defense. I think the coach is doing quite a good job of that at the moment. But you can't do it every game. You can't do it before every game. You have to wait for it to happen, wait for it to go wrong, and then put your foot down.
So Rocks led for much of the early stages of it. Giants had a 14-4 lead, but the Rocks came back and took the lead 50-47 at halftime, and it gets out to 6 on a Bunyan 3 in the third quarter, and it's 57-51 3 minutes in. And then the wheels came off for the Rocks. A couple of threes from Johnson. Hudson had 8 points. Whelan hit from behind the arc. Wande hit one from behind the arc. It went from 57-51 to 57-73. And that was basically game over there.
And that's what happens with a developing team, with a younger team. And Hudson coming back has actually been big for them last couple of games. Because it gives the coach an ability to spell Cassell a little bit. and also Hudson's become a little bit more aggressive in his game. He's attacking the rim a little bit more, and he plays with kind of a tenacity and a fearlessness, which I like. And obviously he's a Scouser, so he's probably, he knows how to dig in, if I can put it that way. That's a horrendous stereotype. I'm sorry. But you see it in him. He's never had anything easy. I remember the first year that the year that Mersey Tigers went 0-36 playing at Highton Sports Centre. We went to play them the year that we won the league, I think, with Gores and Co. And he was playing Jack Hudson. He must have been about 17. He looked like he was 12. Not being funny, he looked like he was 12.
Yeah.
To come back in the BBL like 7 or 8 years later, to have a career as well, but to have basically created for himself a BBL body when he never had one.
Yeah.
He didn't think he would ever get one the way he looked. And then to be impactful at the hardest position in this league, bar none, because you've come up against an American point guard, a good American point guard basically every week, is a credit to him. I'm glad the coach has got him running. But no, they have a switch now, Manchester. I saw it last week at Newcastle. I think they're going to run out of time. They might run out of time. They might run out of bodies. The discipline is still not optimal in relation to some of the decisions they make on the court and their defense. But I was impressed with the way that I watched the third quarter. I didn't watch much of the second quarter of this game, but I watched the third quarter to see what happened. And basically, they just put their foot down. Glasgow kind of imploded, but they don't have much They don't have that much off-bounds creativity, Glasgow, and that wears you down in this league if you haven't got somebody who can get an advantage one-on-one.
First win in Glasgow for the Giants. They were 0-16 in Scotland. So let's go to today's games and start off with the early one down in Surrey. Giants again in action. Surrey 77, Manchester 73. Big win for the Scorchers, gives them the head-to-head in that battle as well. So that's going to make it very tough for Manchester from here. Not a lot in this game. Giants with a 9-1 run late in the second quarter, and they had a 7-point lead in a very low scoring first half. Surrey with just 26 points, their lowest score since December 2019 in a half.
I thought it was great, actually. I really enjoyed this. I watched it because the first game up, so I got the chance to actually watch quite a lot of it. And I thought it was like a playoff game. It was quite ugly at times. There's a lot of intent. I thought there was a real degree of intensity about it. I thought Surrey continued on what they had on Friday. And I thought Manchester, they have a little bit of irrational swagger, Manchester. Irrational confidence, irrational swagger, whatever you want. You'd like to see them have accomplished just a little bit more, before they got it. But it really helps you in a game like that. And I think what happened in this game was nothing more than that they kind of ran out of steam, and they lost it. And two of their main guys got in foul trouble. It hurt them. That Surrey is a graveyard for opposition players in relation to foul trouble. We know that. There are a lot of fouls called at the sports park. And it happened again. But I really like the way they approached the first half, because they played. Manchester holding anybody at 26 points in a half is, if you told us that a month ago, we'd have said, yeah, right, a quarter,
maybe.
And they did it genuinely. It was a team effort. It was a locked-in effort. The defense was there, and Surrey really struggled to get much going at all. Third quarter, it became a little bit easier, as I say, that Manchester's physicality. What happens is you can play physical for so long, but if that physicality keeps going when you get tired, that's a problem, because that's when you commit the fouls. You can play good defense physically for so long, but you get tired, then you start reaching, or you're just not quite to the spot, and suddenly what would have been a charge is a block, and you get a bit frustrated and maybe go down the other end and push off, and you get an offensive foul. And suddenly Donovan Johnson's in foul trouble, Jordan Whelan's in foul trouble, and that leaves them a little bit short of scoring. And I think that's what happened in this game. They just ran out of scoring in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they led by as many as 7, but as you say, the fouls mounting up. And with 7 to play, they were still 3 ahead, 58-61, but then Surrey scored 12 of the next 13 points to lead by 8. But Manchester came again, and actually a big shot from Walsh in the corner for 3.
Yeah.
And then then Hildreth with the second chance put
Yeah.
back. It was an and one, but he missed the free throw, and those were the two big plays in the last minute.
It was, and but then I look at what's happened is that at the end of the game, Lloyd's gone very small with his team because he hasn't got Johnson in the game, and I don't think he had Ulf in the game. He had Satchel at the 5. I might be wrong, but I'll have to check that back. But he had a lot of guards in the court. He had Owandi at the 4. He had Satchel at the 5. He had, from memory, Hudson, Cassell, and must be somebody else. I'm forgetting. Apologies. It might have been Owandi. Satchel and Ulf. No, it wasn't. It was somebody else. Never mind. He had somebody. They were there, and I remember thinking when Hildreth got that rebound, they'd gone small to try and manufacture some scoring.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they gave it up at the other end. And I think, to be fair, they've had a heck of a run as well, and they've been down on bodies. They've been down on Jaramapur. Hudson's only just started playing again. And I don't think they're quite deep enough to sustain Johnson and Wheeler both fouling out in 22 minutes. I think the coach needs to have the option of playing at least one of those guys 30 minutes.
Yeah.
To give them enough. But credit to Surrey. Rickman, I thought, was impressive in this game. He gave good effort at both ends of the court. They're still a little bit schizophrenic in relation to some of their shooting, some of the decision making, but they are a lot more together. And as you say, Walsh stepped up and made the shot this time. It was Hildreth, and it's good to see those guys getting reps and getting to play in big games at the important time, because they're both, obviously Hildreth's off to college, but Walsh has a chance to be a really solid player in this league. And the more he plays now, the more he gets a chance to shoot those shots and make those shots, the better he's going to be.
Yeah. It's a good job Surrey didn't need all those free throws, because they missed a ton. 11 of 27 from the free throw line.
That might be the other reason why Manchester held someone at 26. Maybe they played the best free throw defense they played all season.
Yeah.
11,
right, let's go to the copper box. London Lions 85, Bristol Flyers 74. Flyers come out, made some threes early on, got a 7-point lead. Ali Hodzic put the Lions in front early in the second quarter. Not a great deal between these two teams in the first half, to be honest with you.
No, I'm a little bit concerned for London, and this sounds crazy. We'll get, because obviously they've won lots of games. They've won about 6 or 7 games in a row.
I think it is
8 games in a row.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to project forward to how they're going to play against Plymouth, potentially in the playoffs. Potentially, they should win the first round against whoever they get, be it Worcester or Cheshire, but certainly Plymouth or Leicester. And they seem to have lost a little bit of what they had in relation to their identity, and I think it's to do with the fact that a lot of the guard spots have been very different and changing, and there's a lot more throw it down low in the block than there was. There's the space, there's a few more sets that they're running instead of what they were doing previously, which is basic high screen and roll spread floor offense. You get Parker's going to step out to shoot the 3. Ligon's going to shoot the 3. Williams going to shoot the 3. Tauier's going to run down the middle and rebound everything and dunk everything. And they're a little bit, I don't know if they're trying stuff out for the playoffs, or trying to put more stuff in or whatever. But I don't think that's their strength. I think their guys need to be playing in space. Dirk Williams needs to be in space. DeAndre Liggins needs to be in space. Justin Robinson needs to be in space. And Parker is better in space because he's not your traditional kind of grinded down power forward. And I think all the lineup changes they've had have kind of moved that around a little bit to the point whereby their fluency has been impacted. Now, that might be over analysis, because it might just be that they played 8 games in 2 weeks and they're just doing what they can to get through them. But at this time of the season, everything kind of becomes significant, because players get into a frame of mind, they get into a way of playing, and you want them to be like Plymouth are at the moment, which is rolling in relation to the way they're playing, their spacing, they're comfortable, their happiness, and all that stuff. And I'm not quite saying that with London. It's an impact of the fact that they have so many players, that different players have different skill sets, so you have to plug them into doing different things. So in this game, it was actually Ali Hodzic down low who really, helped them, because again, he scored the basketball well. It's not a bad thing to throw the ball to far Ali Hodzic down low. He's improved over the course of the season. He's clearly probably the best centre at the moment, because Tawai has kind of taken a step back. And Coro comes in, blocks the odd shots and dunks something, and then sits him down, and that's it. But I'm not sure Leicester or Plymouth will be particularly upset with, the thought that, Faro is going to have to pull a post move 6 or 7 times a game to beat us, because I'll be more scared about Liggins making 6 threes, or Dirk Williams bombing away, or Justin Robinson going crazy, or whatever. That kind of played into Bristol's hands, because Bristol, are a physical team, as we've talked about before, and like the challenge at the rim and that physicality. And London's lack of fluency meant that I think Bristol were able to hang around in the second quarter, made some shots. From memory, and I was watching it kind of on and off, I think Wiltshire made some shots in the second quarter from memory. But either way, the game was there, and they were in it. That was 40-39 at the half, I think.
Yeah, and Bristol were back on top until the third quarter, and the Lions then had a 10-2 run to lead by 8, and then last play of the third quarter, first play of the fourth quarter, they hit 3-pointers, and they got out to 14. And then it was a really weird ending, because I'm watching this, and Bristol were almost there, and Nigel was talking about it on commentary. He's like, I think the Lions think this is done, but it's not done. And if Bristol had made a couple of shots, and Teddy was open for a 3, and he missed it, and it was one of them where if they just made a couple of shots in the last 2 minutes, they could have put pressure on, and it wasn't over, even though it looked like the Lions had moved on to Wednesday.
And this is the thing, when you're playing all the games that you are playing with London. I mean, it's all strange, because it's rare that you bring a point guard in with 7 minutes to go in the game who hasn't touched the floor to finish the game, and that was Lockhart. And then he comes in with 7 minutes to go. So the whole thing is, it's Star Trek 4-dimensional chess that's going on out there, and I'm not even going to try and figure it out. But Bristol don't have the spirit ability. They haven't had spirit ability all season. That's basically been their problem. The best shot is if Ben Mockford gets going. But their bigs played okay in this game from what I saw. But again, I don't know, what was Edozie in this game?
I haven't got his. Delpesh had 18. I didn't. I
think Delpesh. I mean, I think Nigel made the point. Nigel made the point at the end of the third quarter that that the game was getting away, and Teddy and Delpesh were on the bench. And it was probably a little bit late to bring them back in, because it's that thing at London. If London get out to double figures, their swagger kind of exponentially increases to the point whereby they know that they're not going. They don't believe they're going to lose. And generally they're not at all.
No. Well, let's go to Sheffield then. Sheffield Sharks 91, Worcester Wolves 88, double overtime this time. And Mike Parks injured his knee in the second minute of the game. And I must admit, because I got 4 screens going on, I didn't see how he injured his knee. I saw him going off, but he didn't come back. Hopefully for Worcester, that's not a long-term thing, given how little time they've got left. And I think it's fair to say Shafty and John Timms were not overly impressed with this game in the first half. So we'll just skip past the first half and almost spin it through to the
just
end.
A note to say, though, still no Brandon Anderson.
Yes,
This is Worcester's. I hate to say it, it's harsh, but at the moment the guys that they've got are playing at the level. Very close to the maximum of their level. Anderson takes him to a higher level, and he's not there. So that's going to be a crucial determinant in how they go further.
So the Wolves 8-2 start to the second half, led by 9, 33-42, and then had an 8-0 start to the fourth quarter. To stretch it out to 12, and then Nick Lewis has 5 of those Nick Lewis moments where he scores 14 points in the fourth quarter and drags Sheffield back into the game.
Nick Lewis is probably one of the 5 or 6 players who, if my hair hadn't been grey, would have turned it grey when I was coaching, because he has a unique game. And it's a very difficult kind of game to kind of communicate to players, and And the summary of it is that basically Nick Lewis, for his career, shoots a better 3-point percentage than 2-point percentage. If you can get him to take 2 steps inside the arc, shoot a jump shot of any sort, he's more likely to miss it than as if he is shooting a 3 with a hand in his face, stepping back off one leg. You know, it's nuts. He is just one of these guys who is a tough shot maker. And normally they're the hardest people to prepare for, because your players are thinking, that's a tough shot, that's good, I'm going to take a tough shot. When in fact, what I'm wanting them to do is to
take an easy shot,
run out at him, dribble past him,
yeah,
and pull up for an open 18-footer.
Yeah.
Right? I'll live with that because I know what the numbers say.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously they're not always entirely open, they'll have a hand up as well and that type of thing. But the other thing about Nick Lewis, which is why what drives you absolutely nuts about coaching against him, is that he can be 0 of 12. And the 13th shot is going up, and it's got an equal chance of going in. Yeah. And the moment that he makes the first one, it is on.
Yeah.
Right? It is on. I mean, I had this look with Fab, because we used to play Sheffield a ton, obviously. Yeah. And we'd play them for times we played them for leagues, and they had a season with BJ Holmes where they were right up there with the league. For us, and Nick Lewis was a main guy in that team. And I had a look with every time when Nick Lewis made his first one, if Fab was on the court, he would look at me and I would look at him.
Yeah.
Right. You got him.
Yeah.
You got him. I'm not, he is not beating us like that. No way. And it surprises me that it can still happen, but it does still happen. But all these guys don't know Nick Lewis. Nicholas Lewis. And he did what he's fearless. He's fearless. And sometimes, he can shoot you out of a game as much as he can shoot you into a game. But he's one of those guys that you just have that sense of relief when Atiba takes him out, because it could happen. Yeah, and that's even if he's hurting his team, even if you've got him bottled up, the moment that he's taken out, you're happy. And so in this game, as you say, he went off, and he dragged them back in the game on his own, basically.
And he gets down to the end of the game, gets into the foul game, and Jordan Williams goes 1 of 2 from the line. Tolo Kiki goes 1 of 2 from the line, which allows Sheffield to get it back to a 3-point game. Ritino comes down, misses a 3, but the long rebound comes out to him. He gets it.
Slow down for a second.
Go on then.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, the inbounds play, they were down 2. He made the foul shot, and they were down 3. And they take the ball out, they've advanced the ball, take the ball on the sideline. Ritino starts on the baseline. He comes up just on the back screen. Okiki, for a reason which I will not get until the day I die, for some reason tries to jump in the lane and steal the pass. Okay? He doesn't get it. He's 4 feet away. He's 4 feet the wrong way of Ritino. Ritino takes it 1 dribble and steps into a wide open 3-point shot for your best shooter. Just stay solid. Make a tough shot. He didn't. Okay. But it gets worse because he misses that shot, but it's a long rebound. Now, because he missed the shot, because Kiki gambled, McSwiggan has to come off Kipper Nichols on the wing. So he kind of stunts towards Ritino, albeit he's never going to change the shot at all. And sorry, not McSwiggan, Wilkins. And he stunts towards that. So he's now at the top of the 3-point line as well, out the play. So you've got Okiki the wrong side, basically near the wrong side of the halfway line. You've got Wilkins off his man, having run across to try and challenge Ritino's shot. And you got Kipper Nichols wide open on the offensive rebound. Literally, then if you freeze frame it, and I did, it's a 5-on-3 on the offensive rebound. And of course, the one thing you don't do, and I've said this before in relation to when you're up 3, is you don't leave your man to go rebound ever. If they get a rebound, that's fine. They lay it in for 2. They don't throw it out to the 3-point line. Well, because of Akiki's mistake, Wilkins had to do that. Wilkins' mistake means that Nichols gets a shot, and Nichols, of course, hasn't made a shot all game.
That was his first basket.
And suddenly he becomes Nick Lewis. Bang. And they didn't. I don't think they even had. Did they have a timeout?
They did because there were still 2 seconds to go. I think.
Yes, they threw it to Kimball.
Burns, it was on the buzzer. I think it missed the shot.
I missed that one. I must have missed that. Sorry.
So then it goes into overtime, and you're having all sorts of problems. Everything collapsing.
Technical problems. Don't worry.
If you're not watching, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Dave's whole setup is falling over. But we'll carry on.
Just like my mind, it's all falling apart.
Indeed, into overtime, and again we got a missed free throw, and Nichols runs the length of the court and lays it in for a second period.
It doesn't even do that. This is the foul line defense I was talking about. I watched this back to try and work out what the heck happened. They made a foul. It was a made foul shot, I think, the second one. Kimball missed the first one. He made the second one. They were up 2. And somehow, having made his foul shot, Kimball is the man back defending Nichols. And the rest of the team appears to be over the halfway line somewhere. Nobody is matched up. Nobody is communicating with who they've got. And it took one inbounds pass and one pass, and Kipper Nichols has got an open deal. Utterly crackers. Crazy. Beyond crazy. You cannot, if you can't defend your own foul shots, they'll give you up an open deal within 4 seconds. You've got a serious problem. So they've got a serious problem. So it goes to overtime again.
Yeah. And then basically trade scores all the way through. And again, it looks like Worcester's going to win the game once again. And Tuck with the foul on the halfway line. You could see the way Tuck walked away. He was like,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was a big play and that was a big call. And that's what gets coaches upset, because I've seen far greater attempts on the ball being called as unsportsmanlike. I saw one in the Glasgow game in Newcastle this afternoon on Fluga, which I thought was weird. And this guy, it's a fast break. He's passed Kimball's past Tuck. Tuck's got literally no chance of getting the basketball, and there wasn't even a discussion about it. And
there was a look between two officials,
which seemed to me to suggest it's too late in the game. We're not going to make this call. And just because it was an end. Now I know an end of game, they're not meant to call unsportsmanlike that way unless it's a transition. If it's just an end of game foul, that doesn't make it an unsportsmanlike foul.
No.
But if it's end of game and in transition, these are the grey areas that are so critical to the winning of basketball games, then that was transition. As far as I could see, it wasn't anywhere near the basketball. It should have been unsportsmanlike foul. It should have been the end of the game. But make your own luck, because they should have finished the game the game in regular time and in overtime.
And either way, it's a dumb foul, I think. Because you're over the limit. So, and it's a tied game. So why are you sending them to the free throw line?
I think he just got beat. He was flying at him.
And but there were people further back. He wasn't last man or anything. So anyway, massive bullet dodged in the fact that it's not called an unsportsmanlike foul. Kimball going to the free throw line, and he misses both of them. And it's like, you cannot believe that all these missed free throws, they could have won the game in regulation, in overtime, and double overtime by making a free throw. Or by defending from their own foul shot. And then they get the ball and kick it down court. And before Dave gets going, wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on YouTube or on audio, you need to pause now, go watch the replay. It's all over Twitter. Go watch the replay, and then give Dave a long run up to Martin Boutneck.
I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what he was doing. They've got the basketball. It's a tie game. They've missed 2 foul shots. There's none of the Worcester guys on the line, so they've got 5 guys behind the basketball. Martin Boutneck is actually the guy with Lillard in front of him. He's the back defender on the right side of the court as he looks. He's got his man there. That might not have been his matchup, so he may have been seeking his own matchup. But what he does is he jumps forward ahead of his other guys and gets attracted to the basketball, which is still 30 or 40 feet inside their own half, but actually runs around behind the basketball and takes himself entirely out of the play altogether, leaving, I think it was McSwiggan, or certainly the Worcester guy on the back line, suddenly pointing. The 3 Worcester guys on the front line are not matched up with anybody at all. And so suddenly one pass, and the poor guy, I think it was McSwiggan, who'd been defending kind of the left-hand side of the backcourt, when Boutneck was on the right-hand side, but Boutneck had done a runner, he has to go all the way across. He can't get anywhere near across.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lillard gets a rhythm 3-point shot in rhythm within his range. It bobbles around a bit, but it's like, how? Why?
It looked to me, because you obviously text me, what the heck was he doing there? So I watched it back. It looked like he was almost back and it was running to foul. But of course, they're over the limit as well. So that's not a great
it's a
foul.
tie
Even if he
game.
got there. Yeah, it's a tie. Yeah.
And there was 3 guys in front of him who could have took a foul if that was the plan. I just, and the crazy thing is, as I say, it's not like he was, it's like, oh God, I've got to go and guard Nick Lewis. I'm going to go and run and guard Nick Lewis. But it's a foul shot. You should be lined up beforehand. Everybody should have their assignments. You should know who you're guarding, know what your responsibility is, and you need somebody in the back line because you just need to be matched up. Just don't give anything.
He was right next to him and he ran away from him.
And he literally vacated the spot. Yeah. And at some point, maybe we'll find out what was going on.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear Coach Newby's version of it because it kind of, my eyes kind of popped out of my head a little bit when I watched it back.
Well,
I think Worcester just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory 3 times in this game.
Yeah, they did.
And they're going to finish. They're probably for their sins. That's probably going to get them a quarter final against London, probably, possibly Plymouth, but probably London.
There were 2 bits of totally modern basketball in this game. There was one, I think it was in the first overtime, I can't remember, where they were 3-on-2 on the fast break and all 3 fanned out to the 3-point line. Yes. And I'm like, somebody take it to the basket. And then the Lillard shot, he's there. He's 19 and a half, 20 feet from the 3-point from the basket, wide open. He has to step back for a 3. And it's like, just shoot the ball. Anything going in wins you the game.
Yeah, but I think it was almost a double take. I think it was a double take. Like, where's the opposition?
Yeah.
Where are they? Hang on. I'm open. It's like you see in the bad American Disney movies. I'm open. The kid, the fat kid under the basket or something. I'm open. It was that wide open. It's just. Well, anyway, tiredness does funny things to people's heads and minds and whatever. But not much.
And the important thing was, it gave you an extra 10 minutes of Wolves basketball because you'd only got 40. You only got 40 this week.
I was thinking, because I didn't watch much of the first half of this game, because I just couldn't. I watched Worcester enough. But when it gets to double overtime, then you can't turn your head away, can you?
Well, and what it also did was it ran simultaneously with Glasgow, Newcastle. It was quite hard to keep track of both of these finishes at the same time. But let's go to the Rocks against the Eagles, and it was 83-85 to the Eagles. Defoe not there for the Eagles. They get out to a 19-8 start, and you think, oh, here we go. They're just gonna go with it. But from 15-28 to 32-34 within 6 minutes of the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they had a shot at it. Did Leicester scored?
You'll have to forgive me. My son's just shot. I think Kelechi Iheanacho's just scored.
Outrageous. Okay, cool. Congratulations from a very jealous Geordie. Well, what happened was, without Defoe, I think he might have tweaked the hamstring on Friday or something like that at the end of the game. It wasn't in at the end of the game on Friday. But without him, their defense is not what it is when they have him, as I pointed out earlier. And what happened was they got off early and they were in rhythm and they were making shots, and I think Fletcher had like 7 assists in the first quarter or something silly, and everything was fine. But they didn't, after the first 5 minutes of defense, their attention slipped, and the lack of that organizer, and as Kieran put it, that disruptor in the back line really impacted them. And Rocks gradually got more comfortable, and as generally happens when you feel like you should be blowing your team out and you're not. You get a bit tense, you get a bit antsy, get a bit twisty with the refs, and suddenly you're in a game. The key for us, I remember, going back to my time, not just Newcastle, the key for those games is never to let it be a game. Never to, the moment it becomes a game, then everybody's up and suddenly you're into it. So you want to be kind of, strangling it at birth. And they weren't able to do that because in the second quarter, Glasgow played very well, and then there were some slip ups. Bunyan got some open shots which he shouldn't get, and they got some offensive rebounds. Malcolm made some open shots as well, and suddenly they're all kind of in rhythm. And then this is anybody's game. The second half was just back and forward basketball, and ultimately, if again, fourth quarter, man, if Justin Gordon hadn't showed in the fourth quarter, I think Glasgow would have won this game by 5 or 6 points.
Yeah. Well, they were 5 points up after a quaddy 3 with 5.5 minutes to go in the game. And as you say, Gordon got them back, got them in front. They got 10 of the next 12. But then Mpondo hits a 3. Bunyan, Jack Domney did a great offensive rebound, kicked out to Bunyan for 3. And they're 3 points up. Inside the final minute, Jack Domney at the other end of the floor with a big block, and you think, oh, a score here, and the Rocks can win the game.
Yeah, and they couldn't get one, and I can't remember how.
They couldn't get the ball in. They had the ball knocked out of bounds, and they were.
No, before that. Sorry, there was they were up 3. And 30 seconds left, and they made they gave Gordon and 1.
Yeah. Sorry, they turned the ball over on the inbound. Then Gordon gets the and 1. There's 15 seconds to go at that point, right. and it's 83-83.
That was a tremendous athletic play by Gordon. Yeah. It wasn't a smart foul, obviously, for obvious reasons. You're up 3. You just go straight up, and if he makes the shot, he makes the shot. Then you're throwing it in, and they're fouling you.
Yeah.
So that was the first mistake.
And Eagles actually had a foul or 2 to give at that point.
I think, yeah.
So they waited until 5 seconds to go, committed a foul.
Fletcher took a good foul on Bunyan, albeit, to be honest, he wasn't going anywhere. So he gave him the chance to reset. And then they couldn't get the ball bounce. Yeah. Well, they had no timeouts, which was a problem. Yeah. They were inbounding it on the baseline, which is, it was always the tougher place to inbound it.
It went from a bad position to a worse position with the deflection.
As it was tipped out. And then there was, there was a question as to whether or not there was a foul on the very last one, because threw the ball into Mpondo, and Edwards, Kieran referred to it as a clothesline. Edwards certainly, I watched it back, he certainly had his arm out at neck level. You couldn't see because of the perspective whether there was any contact between it, but Mpondo's head jerked back like there was. So that would have given them the ball out of bounds again. So it would have guaranteed overtime. But instead, Newcastle got the ball out of bounds, but they had a timeout, so they could take it out in a better place. And then they run the same play that they ran last week against Manchester when they were down by 4. And it's, the lob play for Gordon, basically. The guards come off, and the big sets a down screen, Gordon spins, and Fluger throws a good lob, and then a freeze framed it. So to look at the call, it's difficult to see from our angle because it wasn't our side of the court. I don't know if it was called when Quady was on the ground before he jumped. I don't know if there's a little bit of contact there, or whether it was called for the contact that was in the air. If it was contact in the air, then I'm not so sure. If there was contact on the ground, then I could kind of understand it. I mean, Gordon was unbalanced, certainly, but you don't know how much of that was unbalanced because of reaching to get the basketball as opposed to Quady knocking him. But the problem with defensive players with that play in that situation is that Gordon's looking at the ball and Quady's not looking at the ball. Yeah. You see it in football as well. The player is looking at the ball and the player is not looking at the ball. The player who's not looking at the ball is far more likely to be penalised. So you can't say it's not a brave call. I can't say, to be honest, whether it's a right call or not. I'm not even going to. I don't think there's enough evidence there on the video for me to say definitively it was right or definitively it was wrong. That's not because it's Newcastle. I mean, Gareth didn't like it. No. The referee in McDonald, he stood, 4 feet away, and he's staring at exactly that play. So he must have seen something that he thought was a foul. And then obviously they get a technical foul if Fletcher misses a shot, but Gordon's not going to miss the shots. But even then, Newcastle, not smart. He made the second foul shot, not smart.
Yeah.
He's got to miss the second foul shot in that situation. Yeah. Because that gives him a chance to advance the ball 30 feet before Bunyan throws it at the rim.
And it wasn't, to be fair to Bunyan, it was a bit of a hook, but it wasn't actually that far away.
Well, you've got virtually no chance of making that off a rebound.
Yeah.
Off a catch and a throw. Well, nobody there. So you've got to be better than that. I thought Glasgow were excellent in this basketball game. The guy, when I say Glasgow, I mean, they only have 7 guys. They had a guy come off the bench and no one's ever heard of or hasn't played much. In the first half, he went for 11 points, and I'll give him his credit. His name, which is Hart, I can't remember his first name. Say again? Fergus. I was going to call him Fraser, but Fraser Martin. Fergus Hart, great job, came in 5 of 6 for 11 points. But from Newcastle's perspective, you can't be giving up 11 points in a quarter to a guy who's not on the scouting report. You can't. Those guys have to look at themselves and say, look, this guy's made it. Once he makes a couple of shots, it's like, okay, we're going to have to guard you, it's on, etc. And they didn't. I thought Glasgow were excellent and probably deserved to win the basketball game. I thought Newcastle were pretty flimsy mentally in this game. I think without Defoe, I can't emphasize how significant he is for that team. I think I heard more from him shouting on the sideline than I did from the players on the court. I don't think with Newcastle it's a talent thing. I don't think it's even an effort thing. I think it's a mentality, and they need to be tougher in certain circumstances. And some of their young guys, and Edwards is a young guy, played well. Maxwell's only 24, played well. I think their mental toughness is Fletcher and Gordon, and Gordon can get dispirited. Sorry, Fletcher can get a little bit dispirited when guys keep missing layups, which when he's setting them up for layups and they keep missing them. And I think he probably has to figure out a way of keeping himself on the kind of the positive mental framework as well.
All right, let's go to the final game. Cheshire Phoenix 69, Plymouth Raiders 86. I think this is going to be a relatively short one here. They traded 6-0 runs to start the game. Raiders had a 12-4 run to lead, 23-16, and then there was a spell of 3 minutes where the Knicks didn't score, in which time the Raiders scored 9 without replying. It was 42-25, and that was pretty much all she wrote for them.
Yeah, as I say, it was a team in perfect rhythm with itself and each other against a team that is trying to figure a hell of a lot of stuff out. There was mention on the commentary of how Plymouth just seemed to want it more and all that stuff. I thought Cheshire played hard. I just thought Plymouth were better spaced. They know each other. They're really confident in each other's skill sets. They've got a 7-player rotation there, which is going to help them in the playoffs, because you have the starting 5 with Ocherobia in and with Porter Button in, and you swap Porter Button out for Dusha and you swap Ocherobia out for Hamilton. And those 7 guys are really found a way of playing together, and the spacing is great. Then you can spell neighbour a little bit with Beastie, and you can get a set. If you want a bit of irrational scoring, you throw a sentence in for Morcell, and that's even without Ubiaro giving them some defensive energy, or indeed the missing eBay. I suppose he might have been put on sale, on eBay. Anyway, my fault. Sorry. I just thought of that now. It probably explains. We're about an hour and a half into this rubbish, aren't we? So that's probably why. God. So yeah, but that flows. That lineup flows. I can absolutely see. You can see where every piece goes and what every piece is being used for, and that's why and they have the kind of the jack in the box that they have a Crandall, they have a Fletcher. They have a Liggins, and that's McGill. So they've got that extra. So they've got the team, they've got the spacing, they've got the shooting, and they've got McGill, right? And and I'm not underestimating Hamilton there. But Hamilton's slightly different. I mean, there was a time in this game whereby Jimbo Lowe was guarding Hamilton in the post, and Hamilton spun him and dunked on him.
Yeah,
you don't have to be 7 foot to be a centre.
Yeah,
you can use, if you're smart enough to know when to use your quickness and when to use your strength and when to use your shooting, you can kill people. I mean, we played Charles Smith as a 5 for the last 3 years of his career, and Charles was like 6'5" and didn't jump much, but you know how to do it, and that and you win those matchups. And I just thought they were really excellent. They were a machine today, and Cheshire played hard. But they didn't really know where the shots were coming from. The times they were playing with the 2 big guys in the game and there's no spacing. The times they were driving a little bit head down. Then you've got Lufideja coming in. He hasn't played much. Ross Tyson coming in. He hasn't played much. You don't see really a pecking order with them. And Kyle Carey, a lot of athleticism, a lot of energy. I thought was very good and has played particularly well. But he's probably not the system guy. He's a guy who's making plays. He's BBL, athletic, young, aggressive, playing hard, and he's not really in a system which is helping him at the moment, insofar as doing all those other things that the Plymouth guys are. But if he wasn't the Plymouth team, he probably wouldn't be playing as much.
Yeah.
So it's a balance. But no, he's the one who's kind of stood out in relation to how hard he's playing. But the rest of them, they need a reset, and I'm not quite sure what that reset is. It's going to have to be some hard decisions taken as to who plays with whom and when, and it might not be all of them can play, and it might be that certain guys can't play with other guys. And if they do, and the reality with Cheshire has been for a few weeks, if they get the good Jalen Hayes, they can beat anybody. If they don't get the good Jalen Hayes, and he's been up and down this year, they can lose to anybody.
Right, let's have a quick glance at the table on the way out the door. This should be the last week of the regular season, but with everything going on, they've dropped a few games into the following week as well. So it's not quite, we're not quite there, but for some,
if they are meaningless games, which don't count for the standings, can I put my hand up now and say that we do not need to do a breakdown of them?
You signed up for this. You signed up for this. Right, okay. The audience wants to hear your view. Right, okay. That's what it is.
I'm not. I don't want to be commenting on a bunch of Division 2 players. Rob's Loughborough Riders.
Well, we'll start at the top of the table because Leicester have 3 games. They do finish their season this week. Obviously, if they beat London on Wednesday, they win the title. If they lose that game, they have to still beat the last 2 games: Glasgow at home and Cheshire away. London have to win every game and hope that Leicester lose to either Cheshire or Glasgow.
Yeah. So the interesting point about that will be: will Cheshire have to win that last game?
Well, we don't. I don't think so. I actually think, and I need to double check it. I actually think Cheshire have already qualified. I think.
Will they be
combinations? Yeah.
Will they be fighting for 6th as opposed to 7th? That might be. Will they want to? For instance.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's that question of 6 and 7 could be London or Leicester or Plymouth. I'm not sure which is. I'm not sure I'd have a favourite out of those 3.
No, I'm not sure I would either. I don't think I'd fancy playing Leicester in the playoffs if you've just deprived them of the league title.
No, probably not. Probably not. So the top 4 are the top 4. And then behind that, Sheffield have qualified. Knicks, I think, have. I'm not 100% certain. I'd need to double check on Worcester as well. But if they haven't qualified, they will, because they've got 13 wins each, those 2 teams. And then the question is the last playoff place. At the minute, you've got Bristol and Surrey at 10 and 17, Manchester at 10 and 18. But obviously, Surrey have just taken the head-to-head with Manchester. Bristol and Manchester still play each other, and the winner of that will take the head-to-head. So you would feel that whichever team wins that game would be in the box seat, but who knows? We've still a couple other games to play as well.
So if Surrey win 2 of their, Surrey have 3 games left. If they win 2 games, they will finish ahead of Manchester.
Yes.
And probably ahead of the head-to-head with Bristol. Surrey is
Surrey against Bristol is 3-0 Bristol.
So they probably won't finish. They may not finish ahead of Bristol. So Surrey have to be thinking we need to win all 3 games. I think they play Newcastle next week. I think. I'm not sure where else they're playing. Bristol. I think Manchester might just sneak it.
I did until today. Today's one was the one I just went because they had Surrey and then Bristol, and then London potentially doesn't matter to London by the time it comes around, depending on what. Obviously, if London was still going for the league at that point,
yes,
would, but
it would. I'm not sure that. Yeah, I'm not sure that would be the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be fun. It'd be fun to see. If you're talking about momentum, then you'd probably think Surrey, because they played well at London. They played well against Manchester today, and they got the win. I like Manchester's irrational confidence. I like Bristol's physical toughness, but I'm not sure if they're mentally tough enough to win that game against Manchester. And obviously, if Bristol don't win that game against Manchester, it's very difficult to see how they could squeeze in. I don't think it will matter in relation to what happens, because it matters for the record books, but I don't think any of them have really got a shot at Leicester or London over 2 legs. You might say Bristol beat Leicester by 28, obviously. So how can you say that? I just think when they're in the playoffs, I think the problems, the difficulties with your team are maximised. The scouting is greater, the intensity is greater, and the better players turn it up. So there you go. That's one for the archive when I'm entirely wrong.
Yeah,
you can throw that back at us. I think, I don't know how many 1v8 upsets there have been, but not that many. I remember Leicester winning it from number 8, but
yeah, but it was in a funky system where they played lower ranked teams before they got to the later stages.
I don't remember, and everybody always thinks there's going to be lots of upsets, but it's generally 3v6, and that's about it.
Well, obviously Plymouth did it a couple of years ago against London, didn't they? When London won the league.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, yes, yes, my fault. Yes.
And Derby against Thames Valley, off the top of my head, did that a while back. I feel like there was a third one somewhere, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Oh, Leicester did it to Manchester Giants in the year before the BBL, or was it 86, 87, I think?
86, 87 don't count. That's not even before me.
Yeah.
I could tell you the history of the McEwen's Tyneside team.
Best of 3 as well. Leicester did it. They won leg 3 in Manchester.
That was pretty good. But no, so we'll see. I think Surrey should get there. They've got the game. They've got Manchester and Bristol playing against each other, and they've got the extra games to play. But Surrey haven't travelled very well this year, and as I say, they're off to Newcastle on Friday, so that's a long trip. And
4-10. 4-10. Only Glasgow have a worse away record.
Yeah. So we'll see.
There we go. Anyway, we will leave it there. Dave promises to watch all the games for at least this week. He'll make his mind up about the extra games next week. We'll update that next Sunday. But thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again next week. Goodbye.